progeny, perspective, and the pursuit of the collective. Jingle incoming as we add to our team. Thank you for your patience as we take our first baby steps here. I'm Aliya, your host, and this is Connective Collective, where guests come from all backgrounds and all levels of knowledge in family history, and we discover together. Before we meet, they send me one of their ancestors for me to do a deep dive on. I prepare a presentation, then we meet and go over the information in the hopes that it is the impetus they needed to get over the hump wherever they're at in their family history journey. They may already know lots about them, their family may have very little information on them, or it may be a roulette choice. Research done for these episodes is only done with free resources so that you can be empowered to start or re-pick up your journey as well. This podcast is for anyone, anywhere. We discover the good, the bad, but always the beauty. This is episode 2. Look, the audio is still pretty rough, okay? We've got no money to invest in this at the moment. We would love to, but we just don't right now. So it is what it is. We'll get there. 10-4, I've got a hostage situation in progress. Leah and I are recent friends. We've only met within the past 2.5 years. We were both camp counselors for a girls' camp in the North Houston area. And I saw you and I was like, I wonder if she's from Hawaii. I think we had name tags on. And I said, Kikawoha. And you were like, nobody ever says that right.
It's so true. It's so true. So I was like, who is she?
So
I just thought you were cool. Yes.
I was like, wait a second. Need your phone number. We're friends now. Is your full name Amelia or is it Amelia?
I was originally Amelia. When my parents went to Hawaii, everyone kept pronouncing it Amalia, so she liked it better.
So where were you born?
I was born in Hawaii.
And were you raised in Hawaii?
Only my first few years up until I was 4 or 5, so I don't remember anything. Other than that, I've been in Texas ever since.
I see you on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm like, is it Amelia or is it Amelia? And so I've just been going with the Hawaiian pronunciation, and I'm so glad that worked out. But you mostly go by Leah.
Yes.
Pop, potion, or puree?
A puree. Sometimes I like to make my own smoothies as like strawberries, bananas, and like a peach drink in it. So it's so good.
Yum. So this episode and the first episode, I have not been in my home. I've been traveling. It's been a crazy summer. I forgot to bring proper drink stuff, but I did bring over a protein shake because I was like, I know I'm gonna need that. I guess this could fall under maybe like puree. It's a milk. It's like chocolate and milk puree protein.
Just the chocolate one because I love those ones. Those ones are great.
Yeah, I like Fairlife ones. I think the best. They taste the most just chocolate milk.
Just straight chocolate milk, yeah.
Yeah, these taste a little proteiny, but they're doable. They're not like Muscle Milk is kind of grainy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing. Sponsor us. So we're focusing on your Japanese Hawaiian ancestor right now. You're obviously American. So what is your other mix?
This is just my dad's side, who's Japanese Hawaiian. My mom's actually Native American and German ancestry, so more Europeans. Yeah.
You are like a really cool, beautiful mix, but that's so cool. Native American and German.
Yes. It's kind of hard to do family history on that side because I think very similarly. I saw your last episode, which was great, by the way. A lot of stories are also by word of mouth, not much records and stuff. So
yeah, your German ancestry would be probably pretty traceable, but then your native, just quickly will ask, do you know what tribe you are? How far back can you go? Do you know right now?
I know little to nothing, except the tribe is based on southern Arizona, so they border Arizona and Mexico, so in that area.
Okay, cool. I will say that, I mean, my husband didn't even know he was Native, and then I ended up figuring out that he was a very obscure tribe, and we have found quite a bit. So do not fear. Year by year, things are findable. Maybe you could retrek down those lines and see how they are. Today, we are focusing on the Japanese and Hawaiian line. What is your background with family history? Have you kind of dabbled in it? Are you not really interested ever before?
When I was younger, I was like, I don't know what the point is. Or like, I don't know what I'm doing. So instead of being curious about it, I was like, I don't want to deal with it. But I know a lot of my dad's side have done more. I see there's a lot more on the Hawaiian line versus the Japanese line. And my boyfriend, he is a family history guru, kind of like you are. Once he was introduced to family history, he just dove right into the deep end. And it kind of sparked that in me a little bit, but I still know little to nothing. I just know some names and some stories, but that's it.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to have him on. I do have homework for you. I guess the first thing I should say is because this was a more last minute interview, which was totally on, well, I guess it wasn't necessarily on me. I sent out lots of invites, but several other people fell through. And so I was like, huh, like, and so I started like messaging people, and you popped up in my messages. We had started texting about something, or maybe I don't know, commenting on Instagram. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I would love to go down a family history line. I would love to go down everyone's family history line. But it was just serendipitous, right time. So I messaged Leah here and she was like, yeah, I can squeeze in this week. So usually I like to have a couple more weeks of time to dig around. This was very quick. This was within a couple days. So I didn't necessarily have time to message people who have contributed to your line. Like you said, more work has been done on your Hawaiian line. There's actually quite a bit that has been done on this Japanese line, meaning that there's a lot of outside of just the family search engine contributors. There's a lot of like human contributors who have contributed stories and photos. So you would be completely capable of messaging them. Another thing that I love about Family Search is that you can message people through Family Search who have contributed photos or stories or audio. So that's one of your homework things, is to message people who have added to the profile and see what else they have. Someone has done extensive gathering on this ancestor's children,
Mm.
like interviewed the children themselves about her and her husband. The ancestor you sent me, there are a couple more generations before her that have been added, but there's zero sources from Family Search. Well, not zero, but like very little to nothing records from Family Search input, which means that this is the oral history again. And then it's also just what was on record when this ancestor came to America and had to write down what her parents' names were when she got married in America or for census purposes.
Mm-hmm.
What's exciting is Japan was 100% keeping these records. Whether or not they're going to be super accessible on Family Search right now, I'm not totally sure. I haven't done a lot of Japanese work on Family Search. But again, AI is making things very, very exciting. So that'll be something for you to delve into. I do need you to have a movie night. I have a movie that I need you to watch. And we'll get more into it, but
Okay.
it
Okay.
is this story. And it's like the same time period. And they went to excruciating pains to film it historically accurately and everything. Like it's a full on, it's a real movie. And so I am very excited for you to watch it. This line goes back to the early 1700s, at least, of record, where both sides, like Kuyo and her husband, are just I just switched to Japanese in my head. For our audience that don't know me at all, I used to live in Japan. I served an LDS mission there, so I speak Japanese. My brain sometimes goes back and forth. Apparently we do that a lot because we're talking about Japan. But both sides, they're from Hiroshima.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I
that's
didn't know
really
that part.
cool.
Yeah.
And then, so after you do your movie night and your homework of just messaging people, if and when they respond, send me a voice memo and I'll play it on the podcast. And it's going to be a part of our Throwback Thursday segment where we throw it back to the previous episode and we get a little update as to if you did get any information from anyone else, what your family thought when you took them this info, anything like that. Oh, and also, I need to know what you thought of the movie. I really do.
Okay.
It is. It is literally this story. Okay, so do you know little, lots, or is this a roulette ancestor choice?
I know very little. I know the ancestor I sent you is, I know her daughter, which is my grandma. But past my grandma, I know very little.
You mind me asking your grandmother's name?
Masayo, Grandma
Oh,
Masayo.
yeah, so she was the baby of the family. I guess
Well,
I
I
should
don't.
say that. You're like, I don't know. Sorry, I should say that. I should say that as a statement. She was the baby of her family. We'll get into that.
Okay.
Like I mentioned when I texted you, this is a conversation, so please feel free to jump in at any point. A lot of times when I do these presentations, it brings up a lot of memories of stories you've heard growing up. And so you're like, oh, yes, no, I do know this. I do understand this and all that jazz. My first episode had a lot more shocking things. I think there's super, super cool things in here, but nothing super, super shocking. But also, I know this history pretty well.
Oh, okay. Also, I already know I'm gonna be so impressed because you only had these few days to like dig into it. So whatever you tell me, I'm gonna be impressed anyways.
This is all open source. This is all literally just what I've gotten from the free Family Search account. I haven't even messaged all of the contributors to the account. So that's why that's your homework.
I
And
gotcha.
then what is also interesting about this is that my undergrad degree has this long convoluted name. I was the last person to graduate from said degree title, and then they split the degree into three separate degrees because it was so convoluted. But also the program exploded. But I did my degree in Hawaii, and one of my absolute favorite research papers that I ever read is called Fastening and Unfastening Identities. And it's the cultural identity research study done specifically in Hawaii. So a lot of the research I did in my undergrad was specific to the relationship of Japanese immigrants coming to Hawaii. So I felt like a specialist a little bit coming into this.
So cool.
So how it started is we've got Kuyo Ueda. There are many contributors to her story, like we said, so you'll be able to message them, see if they can give you anything else. A lot of what is there, the last time it was updated was like 2015. So hopefully there's more. There's great beginnings. It's not bare bones. It's she's got some meat on her. She's a little skinny. She could use some fattening up, but it's a good place to start. Her life was one of service, and she seems like a real sweet lady. So let's meet her. This is our timeline that we're gonna look into. I'm gonna give you some generations of that are all oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to really focus here. I keep switching into Japanese in my brain, which I swear I don't do that all the time, but I think just specifically because this is so Japanese, my brain is fighting and I'm a little bit tired. So my brain's like fill in words with Japanese at this point. There are several generations, like I mentioned, that are all Hiroshima from Kuyo and her husband. So Kuyo is very much a Hiroshima girly. She's born in Hiroshima in 1895. She immigrates and she is probably a picture wife, which it wasn't derogatory, but it was not necessarily like something you wanted to be proud of. It's not mentioned, but the way the immigration is done and the time period that they get married in and everything, I'm like, this is absolutely a picture bride situation. So that's me assuming there might be ways to confirm that. You might be able to find letters between them at some point that somebody maybe back in Japan has, because maybe one of her siblings or one of his siblings, her husband's siblings, their parents had these letters that were shared, and then maybe their lineage has them in Japan. Who knows? You might be able to find those though. So that would be exciting. But I'm going to go with, for the purposes of this story, because the evidence points to it, she was probably a picture bride. Do you know what that is?
No, not at all.
Okay. And it might jog your memory when we go more into it later. You might be like, oh, I have heard of that. It's exciting. That's what the movie's about. She has 11 births that are at least listed. One of the babies does die at about 6 months old. She has 11 children of record. She did raise that one baby for 6 months, but there was a core 10 children, and your grandma was the baby of the family. And she was 12 when her mom passed away.
I didn't know that part.
Her father does live another 10 years. Another 10 years without his wife. So she was 20-ish when he passed away. But I mean, for being the baby of 10, it's understandable, but yikes, that stinks.
I know she's still so young when both her parents passed.
Yeah, that frequently happens, that those little siblings in these big families like this get raised by their older siblings and end up living with them. And so then also generations start to get confused and mixed up because they're like, yeah, this is my cousin. It's like, no, this is your aunt. I have that own situation in my family. My dad's the oldest of 9, and his baby sister is 4 years younger than me.
Oh my goodness.
My husband, he's the oldest of 7, so he's 27, and his baby brother is Five. Life. I wanted to give you a historical timeline for context as well, just because that is gonna shape so much of what happens in this story, but also brings the story to life. Because we're raised with history, but not necessarily our family history always. Hiroshima's rich history and culture, which, I mean, they're really good at record keeping. So again, I really do think you're gonna be able to find a lot more as more time is given to this line. And then we have the Reciprocity Treaty of 1875. And so that leads to a big immigration boom, specifically out of Hawaii, I believe, because Hawaii was not a state yet. It was still US territory. It created, if you want to send me a voice memo or a message correcting any of this information, go ahead, audience. But Reciprocity Treaty basically made it very limited tariff constrictions for trade between Hawaii and other locations. So that's where you get the sugar cane plantation boom and like the dole plantation, like pineapple plantation boom in Hawaii, where they have this massive influx of immigration from these other places. Plantation life was already very much established by this point because, you've got the history. Do you know what a paniolo is?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, you're totally fine. I mean, it's used all the time in Hawaii. So anytime you go home, I mean, I've had like paniolo burgers. Paniolo specifically refers to I explained this super poorly, so I'm just adding this little blip here. The way I was taught about paniolos, whether it was in the classroom or just from local folklore, was a little bit oversimplified / was possibly just one of the many explanations for paniolos. It is an amalgamation of people who came over and shared the trade of cowboying with the Hawaiian people. I talk about the Brazilians coming over because they had already whipped plantations into shape in Brazil. So they were brought over to be the plantation bosses, I think specifically for dole. Could be totally wrong. Somebody please send me a voice memo that I can play to correct this. But after further research, paniolo is the Hawaiianization of the word españolo. So the vaqueros were Spanish speakers. They were the original cowboys of the Americas, and they originated in Mexico and the American Southwest, and they were the skilled horsemen and cattle herders that developed unique techniques and equipment for managing large herds of livestock. So the king of Hawaii had gone on a tour of the American Southwest and had seen these cowboys at work, and they had all of these cows that had been brought over from colonization that were now running rampant in Hawaii, and they had no skill set or knowledge of how to herd or use these animals because they were so new to the island. He asks for all these vaqueros, these cowboys, to come over. So that is the more general origin story for the term paniolo. But like I said, it's an amalgamation. You end up having, the Mexican paniolos, the Brazilian paniolos, and you end up having Japanese paniolos. Like, it becomes a culture of its own that takes off in Hawaii once these cowboys come and bring these skills over to the island. What a tangent. Apologies. Back to your show. So your great grandma, who we are talking about here, her husband did work on the plantation. That movie is set in the same time period of that movie. So it is like you can just pretend and drop your great grandma and grandpa right into that story.
Wait, that's crazy.
I'm so happy that I can give you a visual because it's so cool. So that's why we've got the Reciprocity Treaty, which creates that huge immigration boom. And then we've got World War I, obviously. And then we've got the Hawaii US territory still. It's got this culture. And then we've got about 10 years before World War II starts. So many Japanese Hawaiians end up serving in the military and the draft. In World War II, your great grandma and grandpa who are focusing on would all been way too old to be drafted, but obviously lived through it, especially as immigrated Japanese Hawaiians, considering in all of the America and American territory, Hawaii was probably the best place to be if you were Japanese and in America. World War II, 1931 to 1945, and Kuyo, who we are talking about, Kuyo, your great grandma, she passes away 1 year after World War II ends. And so during that whole World War II era, we've got the Japanese internment camps, which are super famous. That was also in Hawaii, not just on the mainland. And then Little Boy, the bomb named little boy drops on Hiroshima in 1945. So that was a year before she dies. So, I mean, can you imagine going through that and knowing that like everything you know is gone? And then we go into Hawaii, and I just will talk a little bit about the melting pot versus we say they call it the mixed salad now. They don't like to use the word melting pot, but I've heard it also referred to as chop suey or sapasui in Hawaii.
Mm.
So we'll talk a little bit about that later. Any questions or tracking? Everything makes sense so far?
I think this is great. I'm just excited to be here.
You're just vibing. Okay, cool. Hiroshima, at the time that she is born, Kuyo is born, and also it would be around the same time that her husband is born as well. It's a growing area. So it's outside of the major city, but it's the infrastructure is growing like crazy. And she's specifically from Yano, which is kind of like a suburb to the main city. Hiroshima was a developing city with the population and infrastructure growing. The city was also becoming a significant military and industrial center, which is why it was then targeted during World War II, so that it could take out that production and all that military power.
Mm.
It's a huge hub, and also with industrialization and growth in an area come hardship and poverty sometimes. It is a growth of jobs, but maybe if you're in a line of work that isn't necessarily useful anymore, you're trying to navigate how to be useful in this explosion of new technology. Like a lot of people are feeling that way with AI. They're like, well, what is my what am I going to do now for my job? And people are going to pivot because we've always pivoted because humans have always created and invented. So there'll be a pivot. So that may have been why it's nowhere mentioned in the quick study that I was able to do of both of their parents, your great grandparents, what their parents did in Hiroshima, but oftentimes too, I mean, you weren't doing too great if you decided to go be a farm laborer in a foreign country place that you've never been. So likely they were just a part of the cultural upset. We a little bit talked about the boom because of the sugar industry, and then that led to a surge from immigration from Asia. This then leads to strains on Japan and the US's relationship. Specifically, it became a really big problem in San Francisco. They started segregating the Japanese kids out of schools. There was a lot of
Mm.
racism towards Japanese because of the fear that they were going to come and steal all the jobs. Japan and America had what was called the Gentleman's Agreement. So it wasn't even a formal treaty. It was a bunch of meetings back and forth informally, and that's why it's called the Gentleman's Agreement. They shook on it. Japan voluntarily agreed to restrict the issuance of passports to laborers seeking to emigrate to the US, and the US agreed not to impose formal restrictions on the Japanese immigrants that were already in the country. So there was this massive explosion and then the gentleman's agreement. This then led to a big problem with people immigrating for work. It was mostly men. And so you had all these male migrant workers who had come over when they were 16 to mid 30s with no wives. They were all unmarried and they all wanted wives, and they all kind of wanted wives from back home. So the gentleman's agreement had allowed for the continuation of immigration of non-laborers such as merchant students and family members of existing Japanese residents. So this led to that matchmaking system called picture brides. First, I wanted to talk about Shinichi coming over. He was listed as a farm laborer, and this is all on, you can read the ship's manifest on Family Search. Some people don't like doing that because it's like handwriting. I find it so fascinating. You can see the literal handwriting where he stood in front of someone and they wrote all this information out. Have you ever seen Yellowstone?
I haven't actually, but I hear it's good.
There are two prequel series that they did that are like prequel spin-offs. One is called 1883. Fabulous. It's the story of that same family crossing the plains. And then 1923, which is the story of them trying to hold on to it, the power struggle of all that. Anyways, one of them has a wife that comes over from the UK And it's the first time I've seen what Ellis Island possibly looked like in the 1920s. Strip searching, coming through Ellis Island, a lot of them would get turned away if they were sick or if they were pregnant. Like they didn't want to have this influx of people that were going to be harmful to the American society. And it's pretty graphic and dehumanizing. So another thing I would suggest watching just to see what that could have been for them. It
Mhm.
would be maybe just going onto YouTube and typing in 1923 Yellowstone series UK wife comes to Ellis Island and see if you can find just some clips. But it was insane. I just can't imagine going through an airplane today and them doing any of that stuff. But I mean, full on pregnancy, like doctors went up into every woman who was childbearing age, checked to see if they were pregnant physically with their eyeballs.
Oh,
So
that's
that,
crazy.
yeah, to put in context of how life was going, would be interesting to look. He's listed as 18 years old. He's able to read and write from Hiroshima. For some reason, it says one of the sections on the manifest is who secured the ticket, and his was listed as his brother purchased it. Maybe he had a big brother that was like, "Get the heck out of here." Who knows? So
Yeah.
he's sent to Hawaii to make a better life, and he's sent on the SS Mongolia, which is this beautiful boat here. Tons of photos online. You can look up SS Mongolia 1906 and see the interior of the ship, what it looked like when he wrote it. So he ends up, and just this is again for context, just to keep putting all the puzzle pieces together. He's 18 when he comes over. He marries Kuyo 6 years later when she is 18. So this is when he's first coming over, and then she comes over at 18 as well. This is the size of Japan compared to the size of Hawaii. And then there's actually a bunch of outer islands. This is Hiroshima, and then this is Hawaii in the center of the Pacific, and then this is the coastline of the United States. Japan extends from across from Russia, where I lived in the freezing cold and snow and ice, all the way down to across from Hawaii in the nice, warm, awesome weather. Your family is from the nice, warm, awesome weather, and your family moves to Molokai, which this is Oahu. So anyone watching, the state of Hawaii is an island grouping. It's not just one little island out in the ocean. Oahu is kind of this middle island right here that we're looking at if you're watching the presentation. Molokai is the long island off to the right when you're looking at it from a traditional map. It's going to be this island right here. This is how it's broken up. And what is just a cool little tidbit about the way like villages and locations are broken up on Hawaii is that they are split into ahupua'as. If you are driving in Hawaii, the ahupua'as are marked with those brown historical signs, like highway signs.
Mhm.
An ahupua'a was a system. Well, they were the traditional villages, but they were specifically built around the fact that each village had to have freshwater access to ocean access. So mountain access to ocean access. So that's why when you look at photos of even the districts today in Hawaii, if you look at Oahu, because it's a little bit rounder, it looks like a pie slice because the mountains are in the middle. So each section of the pie had all those accesses. So it's kind of the same here. It's these strips. So you, instead of it being just like chunks of the island, it's more like strips of the island right here. You can see because each village had to have access to the fresh water from the mountains and then hunting
Mm.
grounds, but then also fishing access. And for anyone going to Hawaii soon or ever been to Hawaii and wondered what the heck those little brown signs were, it's like a little triangle. It looks like a little pile of rocks because traditionally in more ancient Hawaii, or even now, some of them have been rebuilt as a lot of restoration has been done. And that's why it's so important. Little hint, hint, if anyone's ever going to Hawaii and has never been, don't take rocks, don't move rocks, especially if they look like they've been piled very
Mhm.
specifically. They are holy, they are sometimes temple markers, or they are location markers, and those rocks have been there for hundreds of years. So please don't take them. Okay. Thank you. That's my little spiel there. So these ahupua'as now, instead of being marked by always this giant pile of rocks that used to be, they're marked by the brown historical highway signs that have a pile of rocks on it, and it'll say Ahupua'a, and then it'll say which Ahupua'a it is. And Pua is, if you're a Disney Moana fan and you've never don't know anything about the Hawaiian language, Pua, the pig, is named Pig. Pua is Hawaiian for pig, so his name is Pig. Ahupua'a. it was a pile of rocks with a pig's head on top, like a offering or sacrifice, if I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you look at that pile of rocks, little icon on all of these plaques, the top rock, because if you don't necessarily know to look for it, you might not even catch it. The top rock is actually a pig's head looking up with a little snout. So that's just kind of how these locations are. It's not necessarily super specific to your family, but it is interesting because the regions are split up so funkily when you do look at these older maps of Hawaii. So if you've ever been like, why is it like that? That's why. And then because on Molokai, you've got the mountain range here. It's like a long mountain range that's sticking out of the ocean. That's why it's in these strips. So each area has all that access they need. And your family, they worked in a plantation that was way, way remote. So we're going to go to Picture Brides. A direct quote from one of Kuyo's children is, and this is talking about your great grandpa. They said he was a hard worker. He came to Hawaii from Japan for a better life and sent for Kuyo. Because he came over when he was 18, she would have been 12 at the time. So they weren't dating necessarily before they went over. He sent for her feels to me like he ordered her. Like it was a
Mm.
matchmaking process, and that was the nice way of putting it. A lot of these immigration photos of these women coming off these ships are really cool because they all come off decked out as much as possible. A lot of them are super poor. They're sent over in as nice of a wedding attire as possible because they were meeting their husbands for the first time. This is several picture brides coming into port in Honolulu in the 1920s. The picture bride system was an exchange of photographs between prospective grooms and brides, sometimes along with handwritten information about background. It was either done through family relationships or a matchmaker. Maybe they were families that knew each other and they were like, oh yeah, the Kuyo girl, she's a hard worker. I think she would do really well. She would survive the trip. She would thrive in a foreign environment.
Mhm.
Let's do that. Oftentimes, these men would send old photos of them because they didn't have money necessarily to take new photos. The only photos they have of themselves are like the ones that they had from their passports or the ones they had from back home before they came over to Hawaii. The photos might be anywhere from 2 to 10 years old. And
Oh
there's no
my goodness.
real way to tell that until you show up in person and it's too late. The movie that I want you to watch, this is the poster over here, Picture Bride.
Surprise.
This movie follows the story of a 16-year-old picture bride who gets catfished and basically forced married to a man in his at least 30s, maybe even 40s. And there's so many other picture brides meeting their husbands for the first time. So your great grandparents were a little bit closer in age. It would have been a lot more understandable. Who knows? They seem to have liked each other well enough, but you can drop them as background characters in this movie. They're definitely not the main characters. But again, so fascinating for context. Because they had to be spouses of people who have already immigrated over, they would do these marriages by proxy. So,
What?
yeah. So, man would be in Hawaii, the women would be in Japan. They would do the matchmaking process. And then when someone was decided on, like a couple was decided on, they would be married by proxy on location so that the proper paperwork could be filled out for the bride to be sent for because of the restrictions on immigration at that time. A lot of times the proxy person would be a brother or the father of the groom. And then it was recognizable enough, or at least was a loophole that allowed for these wives to be sent for, but then they would be officially married when they would come over to Hawaii. Your great grandfather was working on a different island, but the main port was Honolulu. So they would have to come to Honolulu, take boats to pick up their brides, take a quick stop to the courthouse, and then head back to the islands that they were coming from. From the records that I was able to look at, I would be shocked if I was wrong, that that's not what happened with your great grandma and grandpa. That's why I need you to watch this movie and then tell me all your thoughts.
The cover photo of just like looking at the picture bride, the girl looks like my cousin. Like, I don't know why, that she just looks exactly like my cousin right there.
Memoirs of a Geisha is very good. It's the same, it's not your family story, but it is the same time period if you wanted to see cultural context of how Japan changed during World War II, that would be very fascinating to watch as well. If you want a double movie feature, which your family was very fond of, we'll get into that. But a double movie feature would be really fun. So Memoirs of a Geisha would be another one I would refer to. But that main actress might have been Korean or Chinese or something, but also it's a Japanese film. But another thing I want to say about this movie Picture Bride and why it's like one of my favorite movies is because the entire movie, it was an American movie that released in 1995, but the entire movie is in Japanese and pidgin.
Really? Wait, what?
Yeah, so with subtitles, but pidgin to show how Korean, Chinese, Hawaiian, Japanese all had to form into one language so that people could communicate on the plantation, which is what pidgin is. It's this amalgamation of all these languages smashed together. So, like, for example, one word you might know from pidgin that is Japanese derived is shishi. Have you ever heard?
Yeah.
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 Oh, I gotta like pull over. I gotta make a quick shishi. Shishi means pee for our listeners that don't know. Like I gotta take a whiz. It's derived from a Japanese word. So there's lots and lots of that throughout the culture of Hawaii. And I'm not saying specifically Hawaiian culture, but the culture of Hawaii and with its colonization. You find that in the food, in the fashion, in the language. Any other questions, comments, thoughts so far?
I think the way their marriage was, where they came together, like you said, you never know who you're going to be with, who you're going to end up with in that situation. So, I mean, like you said, I think they did really like each other. They had 10 children. So,
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, they seem to have gotten along very, very well. And the way they raised their kids had a strong impact on their memories of them. It turned out really well for them. So that's good.
yeah. Yeah.
This movie is hilarious because she's livid. Livid when she gets to Hawaii. So it's pretty funny. The whole thing's in pidgin, Hawaiian pidgin, and Japanese. So that's fun. And then,
I'm excited.
so speaking of pictures, there was only one photo available of her that was labeled that was her on Family Search, but I did find another one that was not labeled as her because I went through every one of her children and was able to find another photo of her that was not labeled as her, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Which is why it's fun to go through, like when you look at your family history, if you're stuck on information, you can dig through each one of their children and then each of the parents to see if someone has tucked something away in one of those profiles. The image over here, this grainy image, is the only image we have. I did an AI rendering of the image and then shade by shade matched up as meticulously as possible what it would look like clearer. It
She's
looks
so beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, and it's such a clear image, but still definitely looks like the other photo. So that just might give you a better image as to what she looked like towards the end of her life.
Wow.
So this is the family portrait I found in someone else's profile. And I thought maybe it was because it's not labeled at all. It could have been that person's husband and their kids, but I counted and she was the only one that had 10 children and there are 10 children, you know? And because I'd done the AI rendering and spent so much time shading, I was like, that is the nose, that is the mouth, those are the cheekbones, those are the eyebrows, that is the hairline. So I was like, that's them. So there she is, our little queen right there, and a clearer photo of your great grandpa as well. And then you see your grandma right there.
She's so cute.
That's
This is
your
great.
grandma. She's so cute. Okay. So, there are tons of like memoir sections on your grandma and grandpa. Someone went through and interviewed and then typed up a bunch of interviews. So I've pulled out some key things about your grandma and grandpa from these interviews about their nature or how they raise their kids. So can you read this little story that I named Magic Word?
Yes. With a large family and Pop, the only breadwinner, I often wondered how did he ever manage to support us, feed us, clothe us, and especially give a lot of loving to all. But I remember that every weekend he would hunt for deer or go fishing. He had pigs, chickens, ducks, rabbits, and together with the fish he'd bring home on weekends, we had so much to eat. I never ever remember a time when our cupboard was bare. When I heard others speak about how times were bad and children went without food or decent clothing, I realized that my parents had a magic word to provide us with all the necessities of life. The magic word was work.
With the historical context of they're Japanese, this is in between World War I and World War II and World War II. I mean, these are rough times they're also
Mm.
living kind of in the middle of nowhere. They remember their friends lacked, yet they don't ever remember lacking.
Wow.
Here are some specific memories of Pop Pop, and these are just narrowed down. The older grandkids were interviewed from probably the older siblings that would have remembered grandma, and then the siblings, as in the children of Kuyo and her husband, were interviewed. And so
Mm.
they all kind of were saying very similar things. So these were the highlights of what they said about their parents. I'll read the small ones and you can read the big one. He loved the ocean and he fished every chance he had. That also was a way to provide for the family.
Masayo loved to help Grandpa prep fish he would catch. She would have to punch the squids to prepare them for cooking. Once he brought home so much squid, it was going to be so much work to prepare, but they had just gone in a washing machine, so they threw them in there. Wait, that's funny. Wait.
Yeah, I know, right?
Just like toss the squid in the
Yeah,
washing
it's like,
machine.
oh, we'll let the washing machine beat them up.
And that did the trick. Pop Pop died on the beach while fishing, and he wouldn't have had it any other way.
I love that that ended up being your grandma because, like, I can't see because anyone who is alive is private and protected on Family Search. So I could
Mhm.
only see who was dead. So that's so, I'm so glad that that ended up being your grandma because she's the only one I really named by name.
Wait, that is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
What's up, God? He knows. I don't know, but he knows. Okay, so then he specifically, and this could have been later in life, or he could have been trained to end up doing this, but he worked at the plantation's auto area and he did maintenance on vehicles and specifically tires.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And then he also told the best ghost stories, apparently. And whether they were true or false, everyone always gathered for story time because he was such an awesome storyteller and super, super entertaining, apparently. He was the like crazy, fun one. There's like stories of him. There was a bunch of stories about his underwear, but I didn't quite understand what they meant. It sounded like he would use his underwear as his, like, to wipe his nose and stuff. So I don't even know. Maybe he just like reached down really weird and like, or there's other times where they would be like, he never wore his underwear. And so he'd bend over the side of the boat and we'd be like, flash. Well, I don't know exactly what that means, what he was wearing, what he wasn't wearing, but he was clearly the wilder personality in this relationship.
I love that.
Okay,
That's so great.
go ahead and read this blip in the middle.
When we were kids down in Kanayo Camp on the island of Molokai, it was very isolated without even a store to do our shopping at. On Friday evenings, Pop made it a point to treat us to the movies up at Kuala Pu'u.
Yeah,
Kuala Pu'u.
Kuala Lumpur.
Friday night was specifically double feature night, so it made it worth the money spent.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's why I was like, perfect. We have a double movie feature for you too.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
He would drag everyone in the family all the way down and pay for everyone's tickets. As someone who was the sole provider and had 10 children, I can only imagine how expensive that was for someone who was a laborer.
Oh
But
yeah.
that's why he was like, well, Friday nights is the double feature, so it's a 2 for 1, so it's especially worth it. And then usually while they would do that, he was obsessed with the game Go. Do you know what the game Go is?
I've seen it.
I know it's like a Chinese game. It's this set that I have photoed at the bottom, and he had like a set that he would take everywhere. And somewhere
Oh.
in the stories that people have uploaded, it says, I wonder where that old Go set is because he always had it. So he would rarely come in to watch the movies, and he would just go up me. He would just go. Oh my gosh, now I'm saying go. He would meet up with his friends to go play Go. But if he did come into the movies, he would always snore so loud that everyone always knew it was Mr. Takeo. He's a hard worker. He's a tired guy. So he'd rather go play with his friends. But what's
That's
cool
so
is
funny.
this is a set that I found for sale online, and it is original from the 1920s, and it's selling for over $1,000. But it's also in like
Oh my
really good
goodness.
condition and stuff. But it would be cool to like buy a set and play it and like learn how to play the game. So that's something cool.
Wow. It's so interesting because some of these things I recognize still within my own family. Like my dad loves to watch movies. Like when he's not working, because he's a hardworking man too. He loves to come home, just watch a good movie, and then go right into the next one. So I remember like growing up and always watching movies with my dad. I'll look into Go. I'll see what that's like. but I love games. I love playing board games and stuff.
It's so crazy what just gets passed down that you don't even realize is just an integral part of the family culture because it's been around for a couple generations. This is mom's section. She always took care of the livestock and garden. She worked really hard all of her life too. She didn't work on the plantation. Some wives did. She did not. She had 10 kids. So she was constantly cooking, cleaning, sewing, and then also tending to their garden and their livestock. Again, these are just blips condensed down from a lot of the stories. So they all said she was quiet, minded her own business. She was so busy at home. I barely remember her leaving the house. She was a quiet and mild person. I can't recall her ever raising her voice, and I can picture her sitting on the parlor sofa doing her mending after all the kitchen mess was cleaned up. When my friends came to the door asking for me, she would gently call for me, and I can still hear her voice. I'm like, wow, 10 kids and she didn't yell? Apparently, she was a mom that was not strict with the old country traditions in the way she parented. She was sweet and quiet. She hardly spanked us or was severe with us in any way. So she didn't want to bring those traditions over with her, she apparently decided, and was vocal about saying that she was like, I'm not going to treat you like we do in the old country. We're creating a new culture for ourselves here. This is actually an interview that one of your older cousins did because this is a direct quote. So now you get to say that too.
My grandma Masayo, the baby of the family, recalls sitting on her mother's lap while she sewed and played piano. She loved gospel music and played it often in the home. Masayo was 12 when her mother passed away in her sleep.
She converted to Christianity towards the end of her life and was very religious. So it was something that she found towards the end, which is why it was probably very fresh in Misayo's mind. She played the piano, she loved gospel music. That would have been most of her memories of her.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone said she loved Heavenly Father and she served others. She never spoke ill of others. And they always had the ladies in the community in their home constantly talking to her about their problems. And she would give them advice. And she was a really good listener. One of the daughters also said, I used to stand by the sewing machine until she finished sewing my dresses. We've got tons of primary sources on these two, which is so awesome. Just, I want to throw in some cultural climate here. I'm just going to rattle this off. The cultural climate for World War II included the Japanese internment camps, and those internment camps went from 1942 to 1945. And following the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941, President Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066 in 1942 that authorized the forced removal and internment of people of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast. And we've got martial law and selective internment in Hawaii. So Hawaii, like we said earlier, was not nearly as bad as mainland, but was still pretty racist towards Japan just at that time, especially post Pearl Harbor, especially to people who were immigrants and not already second generation. A lot of the way that Japanese immigrants, when they came to Hawaii, would try to assimilate, they participated in speak English only campaigns to prove that they were American and that they didn't have Japanese sentiments. So that's why sometimes a lot of families lost their Japanese language abilities. But that's where we come now from this view of melting pot. And did you ever watch the Schoolhouse Rock videos?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Great American Melting Pot. So that was like the theme of America back in the day. But researchers have suggested that we move to a chopped salad model. In a melting pot, everything melts together and becomes something completely different and new. In something like a chopped salad, everything still retains its original quality, but goes really well together.
I see. Okay.
I heard it referred to as chop suey, sapasui, where it's a great flavor that all goes together, but you still see the noodles, the corn, the peas. It's all still separated.
I think when I introduced myself to people and they ask like, "Oh, what are you? You know, your ethnicity." I feel like people are more of the melting pot because I'm technically a mixture of all four ethnicities, like all mixed together.
Yeah.
But when you see culture in America, there is still you can still see what you said, like main thing. Yeah.
And you've got influences from each of those cultures in
Mm.
your family. And what's also so interesting is that two families from the same culture can still have totally different familial cultures just because of personalities and God-given agency. But it's fun when you do your family history, you can map out why maybe things are the way they are for you and why you were raised with certain traditions. ergo love of movies in your family.
Yeah.
Unlike the mass incarceration on the mainland, Hawaii only saw selective internment, primarily targeting community leaders and those suspected of disloyalty. The large population of Japanese in Hawaii was still needed for their labor, so it was a lot more lax. But you can see online, National Archives and stuff, you can see photos of the internment camps in Hawaii. It doesn't look like to me anyone in your family was involved in those, as they were far removed from politics and main central city living. But I just wanted to put that into context, especially because they talk about times were super rough, but they never felt it themselves, which is cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, a blessa. So now get into my arigatos. Arigato in Japanese and Nihongo. Mahalo would have been the pigeon. It would have been the Hawaiian word for thank you. Mahalo to Hunter Uli'i, Isla May, and Deidre Kikuoha Uli'i, who have all done most of the contributions on this line. I haven't even reached out to them. That is up to you to go and message these people. Do you know Deidre?
That's my auntie, yeah. My auntie, and then Isla May, my cousin, and Hunter is also my cousin. So Hunter is the daughter of Deidre.
Okay, so they are all of the contributors to this line. So go talk to
Ooh.
them and send me a voice note about what they say. So you would have a week if you wanted to send it to them, then talk to them, or just talk to them and be like, hey, I did this thing with my friend. Whatever you want to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then I also want to thank the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii and then the National World War II Museum of New Orleans. So all open resource things that I found either through Family Search or from information I got on Family Search on records, I then was able to look up, all free. Everything free, 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 for free, free, free. I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of the collective and for letting me deep dive on your family and on Kuyo. Anything you want to say, go ahead.
First off, thank you so much. I think the presentation was beautiful because I live in Texas, being raised here. I feel like I'm kind of been separated from the Hawaii culture and, of course, the Japanese culture. But it was great. I didn't know these details. I mean, I've never set aside time to really get to know an ancestor of mine. So thank you. That was so beautiful. I really appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, of course. I freaking love it. It just brings so much joy. It's so joyful.
It is joyful. And I was thinking about this the other day. I feel like we come to understand more about ourselves when we do learn about our ancestors.
Yes.
And just seeing, even the, like you said, the small things like love for movies and how it's kind of like being passed down. Even I didn't know about the magic word of work, but I see that deeply
Yeah, I bet.
in my family. Yeah, they do work hard and they actually kind of love to work. Not that they like love it, but they always have to be doing something. Like,
Fulfilling. They got to keep moving. And science is finding stuff now that gets wired into us. And it's not an excuse, but it is an explanation for some things like an addictive gene or trauma. Those things can be traced. And something that's really interesting to think about when our grandmas are pregnant with our mothers, our mothers form their ovaries while in our grandmothers. Does that make sense? So we at one point were inside our grandmas. And just, I mean, it's just crazy because DNA and trauma, they're starting to see that the 9 months before a man impregnates a woman, they should be working out, eating and drinking right, no alcohol in order for it to be like the healthiest type. It just we're finding so many things that we never even imagined would have been passed down are absolutely passed down and a part of our genetic makeup. And our bodies remember history and trauma. Lots of context about that and indigenous communities and displaced
so
communities.
interesting.
So fascinating. Like you said, it's so cool to see how your family is influenced just by this little information that you have, how you've seen that in your own father.
Oh yeah. And then even I also learned playing the piano growing up and I love doing little crafts and things. So I know she was taking care of 10 kids, but I've no doubt she was also like a crafty woman having to learn how to sew. She said she made dresses. I don't know. It's cool. I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I'm excited to watch these movies and be like, this is similar to the
Yeah.
situation.
I worked as stage manager at the Polynesian Cultural Center, and I was the first woman they ever hired. And I was for sure the whitest person that was there. And so everyone spoke pidgin and it was like do or die. Like I had to learn it to understand what was going on, especially when, people are in frustrating situations where they're like, they switch into their comfort language. And so I had an introduction to pidgin before my mission and then serving in Japan, I came back and I kind of just sat on the couch. I didn't have anything to do after my mission. I was like, nowhere to be. I stumbled upon Picture Bride and it's had such a resounding and lasting effect on my life. I absolutely love this movie. And I think I even mentioned it to you when I first met you. I was like, oh my gosh, like Picture Bride? And you were like, I think I mentioned it to you because that's how obsessed I am about it. But you were like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen that movie. But yeah, now with context, you have to watch it. And I can't wait to hear what you have. And send it to your cousins.
I feel like they may have watched it.
They may have, but send it to
I know that someday I'll be able to visit Japan, and it's good that I'll have a place in mind to really go visit because that's where my ancestors are from.
yeah.
Hiroshima, when you said like outside of
Yano. But I think that and if you do no speaking into existence, when you plan a trip to Japan, you can dig into this deeper. When you go physically in person to the family search centers, you can access all these databases that you would otherwise have to pay for. So as long as you access your free account from the center, you can see all of that. And so I think you could plan out a full trip, find graves, because Japan really, really respects their dead. You would be able to find graves going back super far. Hiroshima. Let's see. I know some things did survive. Not everything was destroyed.
Yeah. There'd be something. I think there'd be something that would help go deeper.
Absolutely. You'd be able to do that research. I'm excited to see what you find, especially with just this quick little dive. This is literally like not nearly as many hours as I would have liked to have dive into it, but there was still already so much. So good. I'm so glad.
That's so exciting. It makes me want to like actually look at it because I do remember seeing someone had done interviews, but I didn't actually read them. I was like, oh, someone did that. And then I moved.
Yay! Stress off of me. Yeah. No, and that's totally fine. I've got some complicated family history on one of my dad's lines, and I know stuff and because I'm interested in it, but I mean, I don't know nearly as much as I want to because my dad is like, no, I have to. And my dad is so busy. He still like runs a company. He's a CFO. And so he doesn't have the time he wants to input on it. But he's like, no, don't touch my stuff. Don't touch the letters. Don't touch it. I'm like, I want to read them. So someday I'll get my grubby paws on those. But for now, I totally understand. Sometimes it's just like the stress of, okay, it's taken care of right now. This is a very current lineage. You've got a lot of people that are involved. It sounds like your older cousins will have more information, more memories because they will have talked to their parents. So it'd be cool if you could go in, maybe throw in a couple updates since it hasn't been updated in a while, since you're going to be bringing this back up for everyone, sending out a general email if you have an email thread to your cousins or just asking around and whatever you do find, just plopping it back into family search so that you can build a more robust profile for Kuyo. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you. This was awesome. What you're doing, I full support because you're just great. And I was looking at your logo, the Connective Collective. I noticed that you made it look like a family tree.
Thank you. My parents were like, what is this? There's so much going on. I'm like, it's a family tree.
Yeah, and the way you connected it, yeah.
Thank you.
I got you.
You got me. Validating. I'm gonna ride that high now. Thank you. 本当に心からありがとうございました。Thanks for joining us from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you guys listening and engaging on all platforms. One more thing that I think is so cute that I wanted to throw in. Leah says that she doesn't have a lot of connection to her Japanese side, but in watching back this interview, one huge Japanese specific thing that stood out to me in her behavior was that she covers her mouth every time she laughs, which is very Japanese. So just wanted to throw that in there. So cool. If you are related to this line and want to add more information, email us. Please email us corrections or anything. We would love to read them out in future episodes and feature them on our Throwback Thursday Q&A segment, which is completely dedicated to updates from prior episodes. We do have content that comes to you every single day, but Thursdays are literally dedicated to that, okay? So give me the info, correct me. I love it. You're welcome to send that via video or voice note explaining, or you can type it out for me to read. Or, I don't know what that was. All right, going on. Or if you're just on this family line and want to give us a shout out that you learned something or whatever, give us a shout out. Any shock, any disgust, any joy, whatever it is. You're welcome to also send those in. We love it. If you're unrelated, but this podcast still gave you some feelings that you'd like to express, the good, the bad, and the beauty, Like I said, we don't discriminate. Let us know. We love words of affirmation around here. Direct message us across all platforms, but the easiest way to get a hold of us will be through our email, which is connectivecollectivef@gmail.com. That is FH for family history. Connective Collective, FH@gmail.com. And, give us a review if you feel like it. We don't care. We're not looking forward to those at all. We are not sponsored by anyone so far. If you would like to change that, please reach out. And I just want to say we are not sponsored by FamilySearch.org. We literally just want you to understand that you can do this for free. This will remain a free resource that aims to entertain but also inspire anyone to pick up their genealogy journey. We always start with our guests getting connected to FamilySearch.org if they're not already on it. All outside resources are found through messaging others who have added to their ancestors' profile and the rabbit holes that sends us on, or the records on the free websites. If you are ever stuck on Family Search, they have resource centers all over the world that are free for you to access, and we are happy to help you locate one if you feel lost. You will be helped as little or as much as you'd like by a specialist at these centers for free. What I love about these centers, as someone who is a family history veteran, when you access your free, I can't say it enough, free account. If you access your free account from Family Search while physically being in one of these Family Search sites, you get access to all of the awesome but expensive other databases online because of their partnerships with Family Search. While you may have hit a wall in your genealogy while hunting at home, maybe, just maybe, it's only a curtain. If you want to sponsor us, please don't hesitate to reach out. It would be much appreciated. We love you. Crowdsourcing information is what allows this collective to connect. Thank you and arigato for being a part of Connective Collective.